Hello and welcome to this third video in Just Write, techniques for you just to start writing and write great story openings. So stay tuned, I'm going to show you what I'm going to teach you in this lesson. So in this lesson I'm going to teach you to describe two characters at the beginning of the story. That's a really useful way to get your readers interested and also to introduce a bit of contrast between the two characters. Gets the reader making predictions. I'm not going to tell you the book first of this one. You're going to have to guess what it is as we go. And first you're going to learn how to tell us about an unpleasant habit that the character has, and then pick on contrasting physical details to make the characters different. That contrast is super important. And next we will go to The Darling Buds of May. Great book that people don't read very much anymore. And you're going to learn two things here: to exaggerate what your characters look like or sound like. Here it will be both. And using a list to describe things. This was something that Dickens was absolutely awesome at, and it's a really brilliant trick to get your readers to fully understand the characters. The list is really powerful. Imagine it as a kind of desert island discs where you're on a desert island and you're taking with you the things that represent you. If you took 10 things with you, what would they be? And if I saw those 10 things, what would I learn about you? A massive amount. And that's what lists do. The right list helps us learn tremendous amounts about the character. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Wilkins of number 3 Hedgerow Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Wilkins was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. He was a big, beefy man, with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large moustache. Mrs. Wilkins was thin and blonde, and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbours. So, tell us about an unpleasant habit. Here we've got the unpleasant habit of Mrs. Wilkins, and the writer doesn't just say, "Oh, Mrs. Wilkins was incredibly nosy." She describes it, and so we can actually see her doing it, and that's linked to the physical details in number 2. They're slightly ridiculous because obviously she couldn't actually have double the normal neck length. That would be quite absurd. It might even be like 8 inches long, like that long. It would be nuts. However, this exaggeration really helps us picture her and her head swiveling about, poking her nose into other people's business. So it's a really effective way to do it through the physical details. You can also see the physical details in her husband. He's big, he's beefy, he's got hardly any neck at all, which makes him seem unpleasant and not fully human, more like a gorilla or a dog. And then the contrast with this very large moustache, which makes him appear a bit ridiculous, doesn't it? Huge, great moustache. It's something that we would laugh at. And similarly, although Mrs. Wilkins is his opposite, thin, where he's beefy, blonde, where he's just got this bushy moustache, he's got no neck, she's got loads of neck. It's also a comic description of her as well. We're invited to laugh at her. So, really easy ways for you to create characters that are vivid in the mind because they contrast with each other, and because we can see the relevant physical details. Now notice here that what most writers do is, certainly in schools, is they describe the person's face, they describe the eyes or the mouth. This writer doesn't do any of that. They're interested in details which are different to the normal. And when you pick on different to the normal physical details, your characters will suddenly spring to life. So give that a go. And then let's look at how the characters spring to life here. After distributing full marks if you spotted my edit here. After distributing the 8 ice creams, they were the largest vanilla, chocolate and raspberry super bumpers, each in yellow, brown and almost purple stripes. Pop Larkin climbed into the cab of the gigantic blue home-painted 30-ton truck, laughing happily. "Perfect weather! You kids all right at the back there? Ma, hitch up a bit." Ma, in her salmon jumper, was almost 2 yards wide. So exaggerate what your characters look like or sound like. So we've got the mother, who is almost 2 yards wide. That's 6 feet. That's just a bit shorter than my height. Huge. She can't actually be that big, but you get the idea. And then you've got the contrast of somebody that's that big would normally try to be dressed in black and sort of hidden away. Ma is completely the opposite. She's totally exuberant and wearing salmon pink in her jumper. Check me out, I don't care, I'm big and I'm happy. And then the other thing with the father is you've got this way of talking. Perfect weather instead of perfect weather. And that's a really simple technique where you give your character an accent. Not for all of their words. Notice that the rest of the words are spoken normally. He's just got this little verbal trick, if you like, of not being able to pronounce his th and his t's when they're at the ends of the words, and you can keep that going all the way through. And then use a list to describe things. This is a really powerful list. So after distributing the 8 ice creams, so we work out from that there are 8 people in the van, and because this is a pa and a ma, Pop Larkin is the father and the ma, we realise that they've got 6 children. That's a really interesting situation straight away. We get an idea of what kind of parents these are. They're certainly not worried about their children's teeth or looking at the children's weight, so they can have as much ice cream as they want, the largest vanilla and chocolate and raspberry, and you can see how much they enjoy having their kids. They're getting them as many flavours as they want in loads of different colours, and it makes your mouth water, doesn't it? My mouth certainly is watering right now, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning, hardly the time to have a massive ice cream, and it's Siberian weather outside, it's like -2, but I'm still dreaming of ice cream from this description. So hopefully you can see how that works. And once again, I'm going to leave the 2 texts on the screen for you. Remind yourself of the 4 things. Tell us about an unpleasant habit. Pick on contrasting physical details to make the characters different. Exaggerate what your characters look like or sound like. Use a list to describe things. So hopefully you've taken notes about those, and I can just leave that on the screen for you to imitate as much or as little as you want. Remember, if you are imitating, you're going to try and follow exactly the same sentence structure that the writer used here, whichever one you prefer, or don't do that at all. Just use those 4 skills that I taught you and write your own beginning. Good luck, get cracking, and see you soon, I hope, for the next video in the series.